Join us now for a discussion about the future of geopolitics in the Middle East. We are pleased to welcome to the stage Amos Yadlin, founder of Mind Israel, Victoria Coates, Vice President at the Heritage Foundation, and the conversation will be moderated by Will Wechsler, Senior Director of the N7 Initiative at the Atlantic Council.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me in the back? Okay. My name is William Wechsler. I am the Senior Director of the Refikiri Center and Middle East Programs at the Atlantic Council. And it is my great pleasure to moderate a brief discussion here between two of my very good friends. Victoria Coates, who leads the foreign policy work at the Heritage Foundation, perhaps the most influential think tank in town. I can say that as a friendly competitor at the moment. And Amos Yadlin, who has had a ton of different jobs in Israel and is the head of Mind Israel, one of the most exciting think tanks in Israel at the moment. They have both worked in government. They're both in think tanks today. Victoria was with the first Trump administration and so has a lot of insights on the second Trump administration. And our goal here for all of you is to discuss the current context in the Middle East geopolitically and how that affects what we might look at both for the bilateral relationship with the United States, for the potential for Israel's increased normalization in the region through building on the Abraham Accords, and for technology as well. Let me just start off by saying that from my point of view, the region today is being defined by three fundamental factors that are driving most of the geopolitical landscape. The first and foremost one is the tremendous success that Israel has had in its military operations in the last 9 months that have completely changed the strategic dynamic vis-a-vis both Hamas and Hezbollah, and created the environment that resulted in a change of government in Syria. That's number one. Number two is the continuing war in Gaza, which is having huge effects being driven by internal issues as much as external issues, both inside of Hamas and inside of the Israeli government, but is having widespread still ramifications across the entire region. And the third one is, of course, President Trump coming into office with a different approach than President Biden and a different approach to President Trump before when it comes to questions about Iran, when it comes to questions about the war in Gaza, and when it comes to issues about the bilateral relationship. So with that as the basis, I'm going to start with Amos, if I could, and say, how do you see the geopolitical environment today, and what can we do, the United States and Israel together, to take most advantage of this moment?
Yeah, you're absolutely right that the shaping factors of the Middle East today is the fact that Israel and the US is on the side of the winners from the last war. They are not the only winners, but they are the main winners. Israel was able to cope in 7 fronts and to destroy its main enemy, which is Hezbollah. The Iranian axis of evil was broken in its most dangerous part, Syria and Lebanon. And the fact that President Trump came with new ideas, this is shaping the Middle East. I wrote a piece in Foreign Affairs last January, offered the idea that there is an opportunity to shape the Middle East. The fact that the bad guys were beaten and we can create an American-Arab-Israeli coalition to cope with Iran, with ISIS, with all the forces that create instability, and supported by China, and Russia. This is a huge opportunity to take the American capabilities, global capabilities that nobody compete with the Israeli capability to deal with the Middle East, and the Israeli innovation and technology, and to combine it with the financial forces of the Arab Gulf, and together to make a different Middle East. I suspect the president have read the article, even though in my country they haven't read it. So President Trump really wanted Israel to go with him to Riyadh, to Abu Dhabi, maybe not to Qatar. And the fact that Israel is continuing the war in Gaza, which is a justified war. Don't forget who started the war with barbaric attack on innocent people, killing 900 Israeli citizens, women, elderly, kids, barren, raped, and killed. And this war is justified war, but it's about time to finish it. It's about time to look forward to a different Middle East. And this can be done if Israel will put forward the idea that the war can be over. Agree to, in exchange, to bring back all the hostages, and then we will discuss the future of Gaza.
Victoria, let's pick up on that. President Trump went to the Middle East, landed in Saudi Arabia for his first official foreign trip, aside from
his second first
except for going to visit the Pope's, the new Pope, the Pope's funeral. Sorry. He went, but then he didn't go to Israel, and he went to Qatar and the UAE. How should we understand that?
No, I think we need to understand it in the context of the president's first trip in 2017, and there's a difference between, as Mary Holloway, who's here with us today, the pickup game that's travel for a funeral and a long planned trip. Obviously, nobody was necessarily planning for the Pope to die, so that was, yes, a trip abroad, but this was the one to send a message. And having been involved in the first trip where the president flew from Riyadh to Tel Aviv, visited Jerusalem, and then on to Rome, that was a very symbolic Abrahamic trip. But I was looking at the speech and the way that travel was worded in his first 2017 speech, and what he said is, I am going from Riyadh to Jerusalem and Bethlehem and then on to Rome. He did not say the word Israel. This year, when he went to Riyadh, also gave a major speech. What he said was, it is my fervent wish that Israel and Saudi Arabia enter into an Abraham Accords-like arrangement. That is massive progress in 8 years, that he could say those words. And he set the predicate for that by insisting on that flight from Riyadh to Tel Aviv. Because when that was first proposed, everyone said, no, you can't possibly do that. You have to stop over in Jordan. There has to be a break. And the president said, no, I'm the president of the United States. Air Force One goes where I want it to go, and where I want it to go is Tel Aviv, and that's where he went, and the world didn't end. And same thing this time. And so I think he is shaping it. In terms of the Gulf, that was a very specific set of countries. I think the message he sent is the same message he sent then in the first term after the rift, which is that America needs all of its Gulf partners and allies. I think that reality was reflected in the call between Ambassador Dermer and the Qatari Prime Minister Mohammed Al Thani yesterday or today, I can't remember, it might have happened overnight. That for the United States is a reality. And we can like it, we can hate it, we can debate it, but it is the reality, and that was why the president's trip was designed the way it was. My understanding is that there is a future Israel trip that is planned that would be, I think, better than a 2-hour stop. So that's not for me to discuss any further, but I don't think there was any intended slight there.
You know, one of the things that I don't actually think President Trump gets enough credit for in this first term was his personal commitment to work on the Israeli-Palestinian issue. Unlike Democratic presidents who have a lot of pressure internally to work on this issue, he had no pressure to do so. Israel wasn't pressuring him. The Arab country, he didn't really care what the Palestinian Authority was saying, but he did it. And he gave the job to his son-in-law, and they came up with, depending on how you count, the third or the fourth American president's plan to address the issue. Where does that stand in the second term of the Trump administration? That kind of initiative, and is that kind of do we need to see some kind of fruits of that kind of initiative in order for President Trump to achieve the vision that you were talking about normalization with Saudi Arabia?
I don't think so. And, you know, we did come in the first term laboring under the conventional wisdom that the deal with the Palestinians had to precede any additional normalizational deals in the region. And we worked hard on it. That was my role on the NSC for a year, was to support Jared and Jason Greenblatt in that effort. I feel like I could run that 161 line down to Gaza if you gave me enough cable. At this point, all of these projects are shovel ready. The money is there. People want to execute them. The reason they can't is the security environment. The ball has to, at some point, be in the Palestinians' court to say, yes, we want this. We want desalination. We want water treatment. We want electricity. I can't want it more than they do. And so I think, you know, having made that good faith effort, but then having had the outreach from UAE and Bahrain, which we all know where it stems from, you know, that was a game changer for us, because what they were saying, we will no longer allow the Palestinians to have a veto over our foreign policy and our national security policy, and this is what we want to do, and we're going to go forward. And all credit to the president for getting that done. I think at this point he doesn't have that same illusion that we had in the first 2 years that we have to get to a Palestinian deal. I think he would do it. I think he wants them to have a better life. I think he would like to see the problem resolved, but that's not the key issue for him at this point.
Mm-hmm. Let's turn very quickly to Iran. One of the other key issues that there's some distance between the Trump administration and the government in Israel right now is on the threat from Iran. Just within the last hour, there have been new news that is reporting more nuance on where the U.S. government position is in terms of how we get to an Iran deal. How do you see the differences, Amos, and how do you see this being? How do you see this emerging over the next year?
1 minute before we go to Iran on the Palestinians. The president Trump, in 2020 with the deal of the century. The Palestinians, like the Palestinians, never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity, even though there was two-state solution there. I think the president is now in another place. He looked for the deal of the millennium, not of the century, and it's not only about the Palestinians and the Israelis. He's not the only one who understands that the 7th of October have made the two-state solution even longer and far away than it was in Israel and in other places. So he's looking for the big deal, as I said, in the Gulf, with Syria, with Lebanon, maybe normalization on the northern part of Israel. And the Palestinians, he offers them to evacuate Gaza for a Riviera, which for the first time brought the Arabs to consider to put some skin in the game, because they were observing, giving advice, but was not really willing to help the Palestinians change their behavior. So put them away. Iran, you're absolutely right that Iran is the source of every problem in the Middle East. I used to visit the West wing of the White House, 2009. And the National Security Advisor was General Four-Star Jim Jones. And we discussed what is the problem in the Middle East. And he says, if President Obama will be summoned to Almighty with one wish, I will ask him to solve the Israeli-Palestinian issue. Say, General, I'm with you on solving this issue because I'm serving, my kids are serving, my grandkids will serve. It's a very good idea. However, it is not the main problem in the Middle East. It will not solve the Iranian problem. It will not solve the problem of your soldiers in Iraq, in Afghanistan, nothing in Libya, nothing in Egypt. It's only an excuse. I have a better idea for you. Advise the president to wish that the regime in Iran will be changed. This will solve your problem in Iraq, Afghanistan, and even the Israeli-Palestinian issue without the Iranian spoiler will be better. So we discussed it, we haven't agreed. After an hour, we decided that the president should go to Almighty with 2 wishes. So
That sounds exactly like how policymaking is done in Washington, D.C.
So on Iran, Israel and America has not even a paper between them on the goal. The goal is that Iran will not have a nuclear bomb. A nuclear bomb at the hands of Iran is dangerous because Iran is calling for destruction of Israel. And unlike the mad mutual assured destruction that kept you and the Soviet Union not shooting at each other, we have done the mistake in Gaza. We thought that Sinwar is thinking like us. He cares about his people. He wants them to have job. He wants them to build Gaza. This is a mistake when the other side is have an ideology of I am willing to commit suicide because there are 72 virgins there. It is dangerous that Iran will have the bomb. It's not the only danger. The danger is that the whole Middle East will become nuclear because the day Iran will have the bomb, the Saudis will go to Pakistan. They already paid for the bomb. They only have to bring them, put them on the Chinese missiles that they already bought. And then Egypt, and then Turkey, and any country that see itself as a regional superpower. So the goal is to stop Iran. There is always the possibility of having a deal that will stop Iran. Unfortunately, the 2015 deal stopped Iran for 7 years, but then released all the limitation with a sunset that Iran can do everything. I'm hoping that Trump will be able to achieve a very good deal that will make sure that all the loopholes that were in 2015 agreement, like sunset, so the next deal should be without sunset, like the fact that there was no inspection everywhere, every time, and for the expert, Section T, that deal with the military dimension of the Iranian program was not serious. So if a deal can achieve, it's always better than any attack or any war. I'm a veteran of 1981, destroying the Iraqi nuclear reactor as a F-16 pilot. I'm a veteran of 2007, destroying the North Korean reactor in Syria. This is much more difficult military mission, but it is possible if the US and America will agree to do it together. So the chance to have a deal is always ahead of go ahead for B-2 or F-35 or whatever.
Victoria, let's, and I know that you have to leave, so can I...
2 minutes.
Yeah, so can I ask you to follow up on that with what is the possibility? You spent a lot of time in the Oval Office with President Trump. If this deal can't be done, how real is the potential for the United States not just blessing an Israeli strike, but the United States being involved in the strike itself.
No, I mean, the president said himself on that recent trip to California that if the deal can't be gotten on the terms that he wants, that not only will he support the Israeli strike, he'll lead it. I mean, those are his words, not mine. So I think he has been careful to keep all of his options on the table throughout this process, as is accurate. Because we are the Heritage Foundation and we write reports, we recently wrote an Iran report, which I recommend if anybody wants to know what our parameters recommendations would be for that, for a deal with Amos. I hope that he can do it. If anyone can, he can. But if it can't be done, the key thing is to enforce his red line of not allowing Iran to have a nuclear weapon, because yes, it is a threat to Israel, but you're the little Satan, we're the big Satan. We're both Satan in that worldview. And when people are pursuing Satan, even if they get the little one, they don't go home and make cookies. Then they go for the big one. So we have to take this seriously. It is a direct threat to both of us and probably to the Europeans, who might want to pay a little bit more attention, although they are better now. But it's, I think that's essentially where he is. And I would listen to him. I mean, and I hope that Barack Ravid is not here hearing me say this, but I would listen to the president and not to the New York Times and not to Axios. I would listen to the president. Also, thank you all very much for coming. I apologize. I have scrambled travel, so I've got to scoot.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. Amos, I'm going to give you the last statement before we close here. You've written about the possibility that I think is shared, the desire, the vision, that I think is shared by many people in Washington, D.C., frankly, on both parties, many people in Israel, and many people in the Gulf, that the United States, Israel, the Gulf could come together, building on the ad hoc cooperation that was done to help protect Israel twice from the barrage of Iranian weapons, to build a more practical alliance of like-minded actors in the region that would be military, but also wider than military. What has to happen for that vision to become reality?
I think we have to understand who is the enemy and how you deal with it. In the Middle East, Israel and the pragmatic, moderate, modern Arabs see three sources of threats. It's Iran with its proxies, it's the jihadists, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and in some respect, the Muslim Brotherhood, the political Islam that led by Turkey, Qatar, not in the same severity as the other one, but we have to be aware of that. So if we want to go together, we have to first finish the war in Gaza. As long as the war in Gaza continues, it is an obstacle. And Israel has two goals in the war: to dismantle Hamas and to bring back the hostages. At that time, after a year and 8 months, 20 months, the leadership of Israel should understand that you cannot do both simultaneously. And Israel should agree to the end of the war for all the hostages, and then removing Hamas diplomatically. There is no reconstruction of Gaza if Hamas is not demilitarized. And then they have the Arab plan, the Egyptian plan, to come and to take over Gaza for a period as a mandate, which is a good idea. And if Hamas is not cooperating, we can offer them the Trump plan. But this is three diplomatic way of achieving the second goal: to dismantle Hamas as a government and as a military power.
And what's the likelihood of that? I mean, there are two impediments. One, of course, is the remaining leadership of Hamas in Gaza, that that might not be willing to make that deal, as you have said. They might prefer to go out as martyrs, despite the damage that it does to their own people. And the other is internal coalition politics of the Israeli government. Is this coalition capable of making that decision?
I think the public opinion in Israel is between 70 to 80% with me, with the idea that it's time to finish the war. Hamas was beaten hard. Israeli deterrence was re-established. And since we care about each one of our citizens, that is now 606 days in the tunnels, tortured, starved, it is our obligation to bring them back. They are not soldiers. They were kidnapped from their kibbutzim and from their beds in a holiday. It is a moral imperative to bring them back. And dealing with Israel's security, we have decades. So first bring them, then end the war. So in Israel, I think the pressure on the prime minister is now very high, and his government may fail from another street, like the ultra-religious or some others. And Hamas, yes, they doesn't care about their people, but there is a point, the leadership was decapitated. Now the humanitarian help is not coming through Hamas. They used to take 50% of the humanitarian help and sell it in the market and get money to recruit kids for their organization. So I can see the pressure on Hamas become stronger and stronger. And if the US will push Qatar and Egypt, I can see Hamas agreeing to this arrangement that I'm proposing.
I think we have reached the end of our time. I want to thank everyone here for being part of this discussion, and most importantly, thank Amos and Victoria who have to left. This has been really fascinating. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Will.